Welcome back everyone at Cooking with Mary Jane. Today we're gonna transform a very not noble part of pork, the skin, into a delicious dish. Today we're cooking another very Italian recipe. This time is much more regional. Since I'm from the north, I have to put a little bit of a disclaimer. This recipe is specific from the south of Italy. So thank you to all my friends, southern Italians, for letting me borrow this recipe for this video. I'll illustrate to you first what I have here. This is my usual sturdy pot with a thick bottom. You can use whatever pot or pan. A pan works perfectly too with this recipe. Some Parmesan or any old cheese, extra virgin olive oil, bread crumbles, optional, black pepper, optional, salt, some garlic. This is my pork skin, some kind of tomato. It could be fresh tomato, preserves. I have here a tomato puree that I bought in a huge can and then froze in mono portions. Then we're gonna need a simple bowl to mix the ingredients. And here I have some old bread that I already soaked for a few minutes into warm water and some milk. Now, 2 words about the bread. The better the bread, the more tasty the whole recipe is gonna be. In the south of Italy, unlike us in the north, they have amazing bread, mainly sourdough. I'm lucky here in New York City because I have my boyfriend who bakes bread in his restaurant every single morning. So a couple of times a week I get a big loaf of amazing sourdough bread. And sometimes when I'm at the very last pieces, they're a little bit dry. I let them dry out completely, cut in small pieces, and then I cook with them. First of all, if you are not familiar with pork skin, you might be curious about how it looks like. This is how the pork skin looks like after it's cooked. When you buy it and it's not cooked, it's slightly brighter in color. As you can see, the consistency is very elastic, so it's like our skin. It is very elastic. That's what you should expect from pork skin. We are gonna roll this skin with a little bit of filling made by bread and other ingredients, and then we're gonna dive it into the tomato sauce. So the first thing we're gonna start with is the filling for these pork skin rolls, which are made mainly from bread. So let's start. Some people soak the bread only milk. Some people, they don't have milk, they do it with water. It's up to you. I usually put like 1/3 of milk probably and 2/3 of water, something like that. It doesn't need to be warm. I warm it up in the microwave after I fill the glass, just because this way it's gonna soak in a lower amount of time, that's all. So you want to squeeze as much of the liquid out as possible. We're not gonna need the filling at the end to have a certain consistency. We don't want it to be too soft nor too dry. I didn't squeeze it that much from the liquid just because I have some breadcrumbs, so I can adjust the texture with them and make it drier. But if you don't have them, you can solve the problem by just squeezing the bread way more at the beginning. Okay, once we have this done, we're gonna start putting flavors inside. I'm gonna start with garlic, of which I'm gonna put just 1 clove. Is this called clove? Okay, we take out the central part. We call it in Italian the soul of the garlic. Is the strongest in flavor. We don't want that. And we make a trito. I don't know what's the name in English of this. It's when you chop something very, very finely. Okay, this goes inside the bread. I'm gonna go wash my hands now, one moment, because I hate the smell of garlic on my hands. Another flavor we're gonna add is parsley, which I keep frozen. I'm adding a lot of parsley just because this parsley that I got here was not very flavorful for some reason. I don't know if all American parsley is so flavorless. Might be, since many vegetables are. Then I'm gonna add some pepper. Some cheese. In Italy we use Parmigiano Reggiano, of course. Here I have some American Parmesan, which is very different than our Parmigiano Reggiano, but it will do. Any old cheese can be used here. Also some pecorino, for example, which is goat cheese. Okay. Okay, last ingredient we're gonna add is the egg, which I didn't put on the table for some reason, but I have it in the fridge. We need the egg because it's gonna bind everything together while this is cooking. This is not actually the original recipe of this pork skin rolls, I don't know how to call them. If you were doing the original recipe, which is with a big piece of skin and kitchen thread, which I don't have, you probably can skip the egg because everything stays inside because of the thread, because it's binded. So we need a little bit of salt for the egg, and let's mix this. But you're gonna see in a moment how what I'm working with. I really need something like egg to bind everything together and to make sure that it sticks. Okay, now the consistency is not bad like this, but it's a little bit too soft for my taste, so I'm gonna just add a little bit of breadcrumbs just because I have them, but if you don't have them, don't add it. This is also, I'm telling you this because I know that Americans usually buy their breadcrumbs. Like at the supermarket, you see jars of breadcrumbs for sale, which is something a bit weird. I'm used to just keep my dry bread and either grate it or just blend it in a blender for 1 second, put it in a jar. Just make sure that it's very dry, because otherwise it will create mold with the moist inside the jar. And that's it. That's your breadcrumbs, and they taste much better than the ones that you buy at the supermarket. One important thing though is not to use the fake bread that you find at the supermarket wrapped in plastic. I mean, sometimes they have some real bread wrapped in plastic too, I think, but what I'm saying is use some fresh bread. Use some bread that expires within 1 or 2 days, and not something that expires within weeks, because that is full of preservatives and sugar and fat, extra fat, to make it taste better. Whereas bread, in my opinion, should be bought at the bakery shop, you know, at a small bakery shop, because it's hard to mass produce some very good bread, some real bread, something that is very nutritious. You're gonna pay it a little bit more maybe, but you can use it for so many things that in the end, you're gonna benefit from the money that you invested. All right, let me clean up a little bit here. These we're not gonna need anymore. Now we can start making the tomato sauce. So I'm gonna turn on the heat here. Some olive oil, of course, extra virgin olive oil. I explained in my previous cooking video, the one with the artichokes, what's the difference between simple olive oil and extra virgin olive oil, which was actually, I added it in the description of that video. I said some false informations. The actual difference is the way they process the oil. So extra virgin olive oil is processed in a colder way. I don't know if it's said. So both the flavor and the nutrition are better preserved. Here I have some tomato puree. This is how it was called. I think it's just what it said, like tomato blended. I don't know, we don't really have this in Italy, but I bought a huge can, at Restaurant Depot, and I froze it in containers. This is very, very concentrated, very dense for some reason, so I need to add more or less the same amount of water inside the pot as well, because otherwise it burns because it's too concentrated. Of course, in the south, what do they do with the tomato sauce? They make it fresh from fresh tomatoes in the summer, or they have it handmade in jars if it's winter. And actually this recipe, they make it for more for the sauce than for the meat itself, or maybe for both. I wouldn't know. Basically what they do is to cook the pork skin rolls inside the tomato sauce, and then they took them out. They eat them as a second course, and inside the tomato sauce they throw the pasta. So the first course, which is the pasta in Italy, is going to be made with this tomato sauce because the tomato soak up all the flavors of the meat as well. And sometimes they even put some meatballs together with the pork skin as well. It's all extra flavor for the tomato to dress the pasta in the end. So I'm gonna add water. How I know this recipe is because my ex-boyfriend was from the south of Italy, from the Basilicata region. So every time we would go to visit his family, their parents were cooking all the time, delicious dishes, and I learned a lot from them. And this was one of the typical dishes that they would cook when we would go to visit. So I know that this is typical from Basilicata region. Sorry to other Italians from the south. I don't know if this is common in the whole south or only in a few regions. I'm not sure. All right, a little bit of salt. Of course, here you can make a base of onions, for example, or some more garlic, whatever you want. I think there is already enough flavor there. Also, this tomato puree is very, very flavorful, surprisingly, which makes me very happy. Even if it's an industrial one, you know? So I don't need to add more, but feel free to add whatever you want to the tomato sauce. You can add some oregano as well. You can add some basil if it's season for basil. Okay, garlic smell went away. Small tip for who doesn't like the hands smelling like garlic, you can just rub them under the water with some stainless steel. So I usually take just a normal kitchen spoon and tablespoon, and I rub my fingers with it for like 30 seconds, 1 minute under the water, and I swear it goes away completely. Don't use the soap because that doesn't work. Now, the problem is that this is gonna splash tomato sauce everywhere now. It's gonna make a mess in my living room. Let's try not to make too much of a mess. Now, I'm just gonna create rolls of pork skin with the filling inside. The original recipe actually wants a big piece of pork skin like this, and then you make one giant mega roll, thread it up with the kitchen thread, and throw it in the sauce. And then at the end, before eating it, of course, you cut it in small little monoportion rolls. But my pork skin comes already in pieces like this, mainly stripes. So I work with what I got, but if you have a big piece of pork skin, you are lucky because, and some kitchen thread, because that's important and I don't have it anyways. Use the whole pork skin because it's gonna be easier. My pieces of pork skin are very irregular. That's why it's kind of difficult to make these for me. Look at how beautiful the pork skin is. I think it's fascinating. I mean, if you stop and overthink it, it's gross. It becomes gross. But if you think about, I don't know, the magic of nature and animals, our skin looks similar, I guess. Look at this spongy, fatty part underneath the actual skin. So beautiful. Another thing I need to add about the skin is the fact that you might wanna degrease it by boiling it in water, which is very, very simple. You just throw all the skin into this pot, fill it up with cold water, warm water, whatever, put it on the stove, let it go very slowly for like 1 hour or so, take it out, and then you let the water cool because you don't want to throw away in the sink all the fat. You need to let the fat cool down, possibly put it in the refrigerator also for a while, and then it's gonna be very easy with just a spoon to take away the fat on the surface, put it in the garbage, and then the liquid underneath you can toss it in the drain. So about my pork skin, it comes already like this because it's actually already cooked, mine. So my boyfriend has a restaurant and he has like a dish, a sandwich that he makes with pork belly. So he buys this huge piece of pork belly with the skin attached, and then he braises the belly, I don't know how it's called, in wine and spices in the oven for a long time, and then he tosses away the skin. He uses only the meat, so he tosses away the skin. And when I saw it, I was so angry. I was like, come on, the skin is so good, why don't you use it? And of course in the restaurant, I mean, everything has to be very efficient. If an ingredient, you don't need it, I mean, there is no extra storage space for ingredients that you don't need, especially here in New York. Restaurants don't have much space inside the restaurant, so yeah, so now whenever he remembers, he brings me home the pork skin, and once or twice a week I make these. We both love them. But I must say, if you are on a diet, or if you have weight problems and stuff like that, or if you have even worse, like coronary problems, then be careful with this because even if you take away all the fat possible from the skin, the fat is still gonna remain. If you see here, for example, this is still fat, which, I mean, we eat it because it's only once per week. And then we are careful to eat a lot of vegetables in the same meal and in the same day. But of course, nutritionally, this is not exactly ideal, I guess. I'm not sure. If you have diseases, you know what you can and you cannot eat. Wow. Wow. Look at this piece. So beautiful. Again, if you have kitchen thread, this is gonna be so much easier, especially when you need to flip them in the pan. Beautiful. So the Italian name for the pork skin is Cotenna. Cotenna is the name in official Italian language, but the regional in the south for it is Cotiche. So this in the south would be called Cotiche al Sugo. Sugo is the tomato sauce. Whoa, whoa, look at this. I loved it. So I told you I'm from the north, from the region called Friuli in the northeast. But I must say there is one thing in common that we have in the north with this dish, which is the fact that in Friuli the pork is the animal that we use the most for all our meat. And we come from a very poor farmer's tradition. And we use each part of the pork, from the belly to the skin to the feet to the blood to the cheeks. Everything of the pork gets used. You don't waste anything. All right, people, in the meantime my camera died, so I had to wait like half an hour to charge it. It was so this is a little bit later. I added some tomato sauce that I had from the other day. I don't think I'm gonna be able to flip them in once they are inside, so I'm gonna stir the tomato sauce really well now to make sure that it's not sticking to the bottom, and then I'm gonna turn the heat a bit lower so that they will take longer to cook, but with a less aggressive heat. Okay, let's put them inside. Another thing to note is that some people, how do you say, kind of fry these in a pan with a little bit of olive oil before putting them in the tomato sauce. You can do that. I think the result might be even better. I have only one stove, so I don't want to do like too many steps. It would be too complicated for me, but please go on if you'd like. It would take really just 5 minutes. I actually would like to show you what I'm doing here. Look how beautiful so far. Bye. Of course, I put this filling inside, but you can personalize it as much as you want. You can add ingredients in the filling, you can substitute them. As always, I do always recommend to be as creative as possible in the kitchen, because cooking should be fun, should be something creative, should be something that you really enjoy doing. All right, people, this needs to cook for, I don't know, I will leave it for half an hour in medium-low heat. As I said, I'm not gonna be able to stir the sauce too much, so I need the heat to be lower than usual. I'll see you later with the final result. I have no idea how much time went by. You just need to put it very low heat and forget about it. So let's try it. Oh, let me show you this beauty. Do you see this? Oh my God. Okay, this is poetry to me. Oh my God. This looks good, guys. Okay, now the tricky part is to find the single rolls. Okay, here's one. All right, some sauce, of course. Okay, first of all, I must warn you, that you're gonna need the salad as a side dish for this. You're gonna need some veggies like with loads of fiber because as you can see, it's a very rich and also fatty kind of dish. Oh, it smells so good. This is not a dish for everyone, for sure. I know that some people don't like the smell of pork, for example, which this dish definitely has. My sister, for example, she doesn't like the smell of pork, and I know she would hate this. I don't mind, and also I love these kind of less noble parts of the animals. For example, all the organs of the animals. I'm that kind of person. As you can see, I'm using a butter knife. That's all you need. And I also do recommend to have some slices of bread on the side because you're gonna need to clean the dish later. Oh my God. Delicious. Delicious. What can I say? It melts into your mouth. I love the consistency of the skin, how it turns out. I know that it's very common to fry the pork skin. That's another way to eat it, simply. I've never tried that way, honestly, but I'm not that eager to try it because I think that the pork skin, like some other kinds of skin, like the chicken skin, is very thin, so I think it would be great eaten crunchy, but the pork skin has such a special texture, particular texture that comes out really in dishes where it's kind of boiled like this one. So yeah, that's what I like about the pork skin, and I think this is the best way to eat it, honestly. I love good food. All right, everyone, thank you for sticking with me. I hope you like this maybe a bit unusual dish. I wish you all happy cooking, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!